Meeting, Tuesday, July 18, 2023. Lindsay, would you please take roll?
Summer,
Here.
McDonald,
Here.
Casey,
Here.
Huff,
Here.
Allender,
Here.
The Hart,
Here.
Frakes,
Here.
Steele,
Here.
Boatright.
Here.
Mr. Latham is absent tonight, and Tom Waters was supposed to appear via Teams, but he hasn't logged on yet.
Okay, next is the approval of the July 5th, 2023 minutes. Are there any comments or changes to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
So second.
All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They're approved. For announcements, I wanted to make everyone aware that I watched the council meeting online last night, and I think this was in the consent agenda, but I'm not sure. But I believe the council approved a resolution extending the term of our appointments to this commission out a year. So they're now through August 1, 2024. Yes. Thank you, council.
What's the procedure?
What section is that in?
There is none.
Charter.
Oh my goodness.
Hopefully we'll be done well before that may expire.
Yes.
Bruce, you and I are gonna have to keep our mouths shut.
Yeah, let's
We can move along.
That was cited in the,
Are there any other announcements? Okay, we're hoping that Mr. Waters could join us via Teams, but he's not on it yet. I did try to call him and wasn't able to reach him. Because the first thing I wanted to discuss and take a vote on would be our decision to no longer have a primary election for city elections. Mr. Huff, you weren't here at the last meeting. I don't know if you watched it. I never watched them, so don't blame you. I'm sure you read the minutes, but there was a motion to reconsider that. We've already voted to do that. And there was a motion to reconsider it, and we had quite an extensive discussion on it. You weren't here, so for that reason and for a couple of other reasons, I didn't want to take the vote on it because I wanted you to have a chance to weigh in if you wanted to. However, Mr. Waters definitely wanted to be here to vote. So, any suggestions on, should we put it off
I'd say
again?
wait till,
I'd say wait till he's available.
One more time, he could just do something like that.
Yeah.
Or we could do something totally different, I'll try and wait till he text. gets back from his Alaska, the whole.
I just tried to call him, but maybe a text would go through. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say wait till he's available. Then you've
Okay,
talked to
yeah,
people. And
I agree with that.
I said you've talked to some people too, I think, about this issue, or was it something else you
All I did was, yeah, I was gonna discuss that here as soon as we get on that.
Right.
Maybe go over a little bit now. Or wait till he.
I think we just wait.
I
Just
think
when
we
I
should,
discussed it is all I was gonna say.
I think we should wait to make sure he's here because it was a very important
Mhm.
issue for him and he wanted to participate in it. And also we wanted to get Mr. Huff's input if
Sure.
he has anything because he wasn't here. So because of that, I guess there's parts of Article 6 we could go ahead and look at that don't have anything to do with the primary, though I'll have to look at it. We were gonna start with 6.6. Which, look at my notes. You were given with your material today some redlining that I believe Mr. had worked on, is that correct?
Yes.
And he's made some changes to it. It doesn't cover everything. It's mainly just his recap of our discussion that we had.
Tom just said he's trying to gain internet access right
Oh,
So,
okay.
he's trying
Well,
to-
hopefully he'll be able to
Yeah.
do that. So was there anything in 6.6 that we could look at now that doesn't have anything to do with the primary? Lindsay, I'm going to ask for your help because you have looked at it more thoroughly than I have since our last meeting and know where we are.
Say that again, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what
Can you kind of recap what we voted on and what we need to look at further?
In 6.6, you guys discussed adding a code violations in addition to the tax delinquency, but nothing was ever voted on for 6.6, like removing all the forms.
Yeah, I think I was the one that had suggested that, and then I kind of thought, well, maybe we should just make that recommendation to the council to consider rather than to make a change to the charter, because it was not easy to write that into it.
Decipher what would be a code.
Right. Yeah. So we were just gonna, I think this was the decision to just go ahead and include that in our recommendations to the council. Is there anything else in 6.6?
None of the forms have been removed. You guys have had a lot of discussion about
right.
that, but you guys have never voted on it.
I didn't realize we hadn't voted on that. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our consensus was that the forms come out of the charter and they are now the responsibility of the city clerk to keep, to update, to distribute to candidates and elected officials.
So the same petition for each, or the same qualifications?
Both of those. Well, we're gonna leave it to the council and the city clerk to keep those updated. Because, we don't review the charter very frequently, and we don't like to I don't like to have a form in there that can be outdated the next time the legislature meets.
So Ryan made a recommendation. It's redlined in the handout that says Ryan 71823. I think that incorporates everything that was in the forms. Or how you wanted the clerk to be the one handling it.
Can you tell me again what section that is?
6.6, it's on page 2.
At the bottom of 6.61, it says the nominating petition, affidavit of circulator, and acceptance of candidacy forms shall be provided by the city clerk.
Yes. I like that.
But we were going to remove them.
We're gonna remove that.
Correct.
Yeah, so they'll be stricken when this redlined again. Is there any discussion on that? Can we go ahead and take a vote?
I need a motion.
A motion, yeah, a motion, and the motion would be to strike the forms that are in Article 6 of the charter, and also approval of the language in 6.61, making that the responsibility of the city clerk.
Second.
All in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thanks. That's done.
If I may, I'll bring your attention to 6.64. I changed the timeline for filing the nomination. And I did that because initially that was for the primary nomination, and I didn't know if we were going to keep the primary or not. I was under the impression we were not, so this just follows some deadlines that were in the statute.
Well, we wouldn't be making any moves on it until either Waters gets in or we go over that a little deeper. Is that fair to say?
Sure.
Obviously.
Yeah, so that's subject to change
Yeah.
if primaries come back in.
Do you think we should just hold off on it until we take that vote? Any discussion of the the language that Mr. Head wrote. I thought it was good.
However, the 17th Tuesday prior to the election.
He did extend that time frame.
Yeah, it's longer now.
Yeah.
It's not a lot longer, maybe.
14th to the 17th?
Yeah. So it went from 100 days and 70 days to I think now like 120 days and 90 days. If I remember the math correctly.
Any discussion of that change that he's recommended extending the time?
That's probably more in keeping with a lot of the other dates. Usually it's 120 or 90, so I think it's a good way to extend it.
Okay. I recommend that we hold off on this until we take the vote on the primary.
Yeah.
Okay, next. You, Mr. Head made an addition, for write-in candidates, and that's 6.65, correct?
Yes.
We did discuss, what happens if we have a write-in candidate, and asked him to look into it. And has everyone had a chance to look at his addition?
So this is the stuff that we discussed with, there's quite a discussion with Zach, our city manager, about a write-in candidate's qualifications, right? Making sure somebody that got elected or moved on fit everything a registered candidate rather than just a write-in. That's what because that language clears that up, that they need to fit the same to be a legitimate.
And Mr. Head, did this come from a state statute?
Yeah, this was taken directly from the state statute.
Okay, good. Is there anything else we want to include in that, or are we okay with this? Any further discussion?
Would you accept that new language?
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Tom's getting on, guys.
Opposed?
Tom's getting on.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. Can you guys repeat what just happened? 6-5.
Yeah, the language that Counselor Head wrote about the write-in candidate,
Your mic.
I made the motion.
And I seconded it.
Seconded,
Thank you guys.
and we all said aye.
Appreciate you. Give me just a second. Let's make sure he can hear
Yeah.
us. Tom, can you hear us? Can you go get people?
Hopefully it's not a full-size chat or anything like
Hey guys, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
Hi, Tom.
is that you? This is us, is that
Thank you, thank you all. Sorry about that.
That's all right, we just found out we're gonna be doing this another year, don't worry about a thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Mr. Waters, I made the announcement that at last night's council meeting, the council approved a resolution to extend our terms on this commission to August 1 of 2024.
We all voted that down.
And our pay was doubled.
Good job. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then I wanted to start out, before we made any more review of Article 6 with any further discussion and a vote on keeping a city primary election, or to changing the vote to keep that, or to keep the vote the way we've already made a decision on it. And I know that you wanted to participate in that.
Yes, for sure, thank you.
Okay, I guess first I would ask, did everyone have a chance to read Mr. Walker's memo with all the information that he was able to gather and provide to us? I thought it was really comprehensive and a lot of great information in it. So did everyone see that?
I do have a question. It was, you mentioned St. Joseph, but we don't mention St. Louis. Both utilize primary elections. Is that what it, was it St. Joseph or was it, I always had the impression it was Kansas City, Columbia, and St. Louis had primaries.
I think part of it's a runoff rather than primary wording, is that right? Because that's what I thought.
Well, he's not here to
Yeah, I
give us.
can't speak to that. I'm reading.
Go to the third paragraph on the second page. I just kind of threw them out, but I agree it was very comprehensive.
The one that starts with the 10 largest cities.
No, it says Kansas City and St. Joseph both utilize primary elections.
Yeah, it does. I don't. I mean, it doesn't say that St. Louis doesn't.
Right.
So I think he's drawing a distinction. So it's possible that that St. Louis does it the same as either Kansas City or.
Lindsay, I think somebody may either gonna set the alarm or the alarm's gonna go off. Cause it says alarm, you may exit now.
Well, I thought the Hot Pockets were done.
Lindsay will take care of that.
Time is it?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time they've been at our meeting.
Into the city hall.
Well,
We haven't even got wound up yet.
We're at DEFCON 4.
They show. They show.
Yeah.
Time's up.
Okay.
Put your hand
but it
up.
says it's armed. I'm gonna text Christina Irvine and tell her it's armed. Go ahead and keep up with your discussion.
Okay. I'll handle it.
Well,
Yeah. So I mean, if you want, I can check and see real quick what St. Louis does. If that's the question.
what type of management are they under? This talked about operating under council, manager, form of government. Is that what St. Louis is? Is it similar? I don't know.
It is.
It's the same as what ours is. I think so.
Okay, manager.
That's what I'm
council.
saying. Yeah, I think so. That's what I was wondering.
St. Joseph, that's the first time in any of our discussions, I've never heard one way or the other about them. I just thought that was weird.
I'm sorry, what?
St. Joseph has never been a part of our discussion of who utilizes primaries.
Oh, hadn't they?
I think that he was gathering, or we were trying to just get some areas. And St. Joe is not,
Oh my,
that's where I grew up, anyway. Good, bad, or indifferent. Anyway, they're
I
not
understand that.
quite as big, but not very much smaller than Independence in its population.
Yeah. He made. So I'm just looking. St. Louis does utilize a primary for
Okay.
their
For
election.
municipal election.
So yeah. So I can't say that. I mean, why he chose one over the other. It may be that he was just trying to keep it to this side of the state. I'm not
And
sure.
maybe the size of the city. I think state Independence is about a third bigger in its population than St. Joe. I would take that as a comparison of size wise. Because I don't think he would mistake St. Joseph, you know what I mean, for St. Louis.
I don't think it was a typo. I mean, I think it was intentional. But again, he's obviously not here to sort of explain it. But to confirm, St. Louis, the city of St. Louis, also has a primary system for elections.
Okay. I just thought that was odd.
Mr. Waters, did you have any comments about Mr. Walker's memo?
Well, I do agree that it is very good information, very concise. Great to see the history of what the independence elections have looked like for the past several election cycles, and then to compare what some of the other cities that should compare well with independents looks like. So that's good. He says 7 of the 10 don't include a primary. That means 3 do, obviously. The only other information that I was wondering if anybody was able to pull together was some of the data from those other cities that don't carry out primaries, to see what kind of percentages there were for those candidates, and then, of course, the elected officials. I don't know if anybody had a chance to do that or not.
I think parts of that are here, isn't that right? 2019 district council election, 3-4 required. Primary election voter turnout was 8.8%.
For independents.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah,
So you're talking about first surrounding for comparing. Okay.
the ones that do not have primaries. Just trying to boil down to find out. The results indicate that small percentages get people elected. That's the bottom line.
To add some additional insight while you're pondering that, I just checked. So the city of St. Louis has a strong mayor city council form of government,
Okay.
as opposed to a city manager city council form of government. So I think that's why he didn't
That's why
include
it
it.
wasn't-
So
that
when
makes
he
sense.
says of the 10 largest cities by population that also operate under a council manager form of government, that does not include
Right.
the city of St. Louis.
Okay,
So there we go.
thank you. That's
Yep.
why I was asking that, okay?
And I too, I agree. He did a wonderful job, and the staff and whoever was involved in here. I took it just one step further and just tried to boil it down a little bit more. And if I did my addition right, it looks like we've got a history of around 19 separate elections that were done in the history here. Out of those 19 elections, only 6 required a primary. And of those 6, 2 of them did not end up with the top candidate from the primary. So there was nothing in here that would make me change my vote of not pursuing primary. I don't see why we would need one.
I'd
Mr.
also
Huff,
like
did
to
you
comment
have
on something.
any? I'm sorry. I just want to give Mr. Huff a chance to speak since you weren't here at the last meeting, if you have anything to add to it.
I mean, I would be in favor of bringing them back, but there's pros and cons of both ways. So it's one of the deals.
I'll share a little bit of what I found out as we go through this.
But I would be in favor of bringing them back. That's
Here's what I found out from a guy that was mayor for 2 terms in Columbia. He didn't rerun for the 3rd for family stuff. His son's a Rhodes Scholar, and he's over it. We had discussed gathering some information like you know, and I, in my own mind, I thought I wouldn't do that because he owns one of the biggest, he's the the head of the biggest consulting firm, and I didn't think anybody should, as we do this as a body, I didn't want anybody babbling or kind of giving us where we should go with it. And all he did was spoke from what I explained to him where we were, you know, just trying to hash it out. So he was overseas, so I didn't give him a homework assignment. He doesn't take them very well. And he said, we talked about some municipalities that got rid of primaries for cost, as what we've been discussing. And he said, for instance, in Columbia, it's not been in the charter. Some of them have never, think about how long it's been since this one's been brought up, he said. You're saying, he said, you told me 1987. It's not like Columbia got rid of them or these towns got rid of them. They never came up as primaries in some areas. And a charter committee hadn't been put together here for 40 years. that's probably, it wasn't like anybody made a move to get rid of it. And as we discussed some of the costs, he said, if I was the mayor of Columbia, which they don't have primaries, he said, if I was running around with 0.25%, 25%, you're looking over your shoulder all day, and your governing power in your own ability is very lacking if somebody only wins with 23 or 26% because there's 8 or 9 candidates. He said, you're right. A lot of them will do it. He said, if you're running, I'm not style thing. They had discussions of other candidates. He said, you're for sure correct. He told me I said, my opinion is somebody lives in a neighborhood that has 800, 1,000. They know the same guy. He or she could throw a wrench in an election at every level. I'm going to run every single time, get the 10 people to get 15 signatures. You're 150, you're on there. You could stab an election every single time to keep somebody from getting the majority. Sometimes he said you have to weigh out what it costs for what the results of it are. So we were talking somewhere $70, $80, $90,000, sometimes 69 or 70. And then you go 8, 10, 12, 20 years down the road. Well, we don't do that here because they put that out of our charter in 2023 or 24. So we don't do that here, and the same thing keep repeating your same mistake. But he said, to share with you, I don't think people have got rid of them recently. They just never were. So I don't think there's any, we got to get that out of there because this is the issue. But he said, make sure you recognize what the bad part of it is. Just what you said. Somebody that's going to get in there and get the same 1,100 votes every time to keep and the confidence to govern, or the citizens to govern with somebody with 22, 23, 24% is going to be very difficult governing. And state reps, it's a primary for each party. So it's an election that the general election is probably way more important than the primary because it's on the Jackson County election board to start with. So he said, I totally agree that be careful taking something out that's solid for support for the government, to be able to govern. You don't want to get yourself, I don't believe, with a scenario where somebody had 20, just like I said, 26%, and about 3/4 of the city didn't really want it. And then the participation, that is the voter itself in every scenario. We only had 8,000 votes, so let's get rid of it. That, in its time, some time down the road, this is a thing that you're adjusting for probably another 40 or 50 years. It's possible. When they find out we just got extended a year, what I'm saying is it could, long-term consequences if somebody can manipulate that. I didn't get the one I wanted. We never do. It's the top of two, bless you, the top of two, whether it's a runoff or a primary, but it's very difficult for the mayor or the council person, only having the very few minute numbers they got, but if somebody took 9%, so it never gathered to a majority. So it was very interesting. He's one of the smartest people I've dealt with in politics about the cause, what could happen 8, 10, 12 years down the road. So that's.
Thank you. I just want to point out, I know everyone read this, but in Mr. Walker's memo, on the first page, when he spoke to other people at other cities, there were 4 discussion topics, and the third and the fourth are just, he calls them philosophical viewpoints. And of course, whoever is elected, it should be responsive to every single citizen, whether they vote for that person or not. And then the number 4, the viewpoint that among the mayor and council members, there will likely be at least one individual who represents your point of view on an issue. So I would like for you to consider that also. And I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but in Blue Springs, the last mayoral election, there were 4 candidates. They do not have a primary. And Mayor Ross won, and I'm looking at a Columbia newspaper article. I don't know why that one popped up. But Mayor Ross won with 34.3% of the vote. And I don't believe he's had a problem governing.
So,
Bruce, let me jump in for this.
yeah, I was gonna say, the other 2 candidates got one. Go ahead, no, you're good.
But I did read this memo and gave it considerable thought. And I'm like Nick, I can see both sides. I can. You know, the first time around, I voted for the majority to get rid of it, and then I kind of rethought it. The summary that's on the last page it helped me go in a different direction than Terry. You know, it seems like the primary consideration is cost. And it summarized, it said the last 4 mayoral elections, only 1 required primary, okay? And then it goes down when there were only a few primaries that were required, and of course that's when they had multiple candidates. Okay, so we're not spending money needlessly, in my opinion, because we've only had to use it a few times, that's with multiple candidates. So it would seem to me that it's not going to be a big cost thing to leave primary elections in, because we're not using it that often. We're just using it when we have multiple candidates, and we ought to have it. I think the citizens, I agree with what Bruce, I think he got the information from another fella, but I agree that was my issue the last time we spoke, is what's the citizens' confidence in elected officials if they're getting a small percentage of the vote? That's all I have to say.
I agree that, you know, you can compare it to Mayor Ross in Blue Springs, 34%, 34%. You got 70% of the people, or in its entirety, there's 70%. So my question would have been, or if you could compare it, you had the top 2. What's the bottom 2? So did it take 11%? They take 9%, where somebody could have had a 51%? So is the major election to see who wins that night less important than a primary? It happens in every election statewide. Primaries.
Lady Chairperson, I had a comment several comments ago. I'd like to get this in. I could understand a primary if it was a partisanship issue. If you had 2 parties, 3 parties, and you need to determine who the best candidate was. I could see doing that. But the idea of an issue that you have to have certain percentage for your constituents to actually have confidence in that mayor or whatever position that is ludicrous, into the fact that how many people don't even vote. I mean, we need to take that in consideration. It's not an issue about percentages to me. It's the number. Mr. Ross had the highest number of votes to win, right? I think that should be the determining factor, not a percentage, especially when you have such low voter participation. And for me, it's not the cost as much as it is about just going through the process of having the primary. Like I keep talking about this last issue that we had, where we had a primary and then we had to do another election. It took for so long to get somebody in that position. It was embarrassing to the city. For me, we need to get our job done.
And that happened one time in probably 100 years. And the other part.
Hopefully it will be never again.
That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Is the cycle ran exactly like it was described. Then the top 2 vote getters, and then whoever had the most there. But we addressed in 2.8, I believe, if my memory serves me right, that if there is the same issue, we've resolved the ability for the
Mhm.
council to be able to go on until it falls in the correct cycle. I still, some people live in Blue Springs because you can still smoke in those bars. There's a whole bunch of different stuff you could weigh into where, but this is Independence. I don't, there's a.
Going back to your comment where you didn't want to talk about percentages, but I kind of do go back to percentages. So if we only had a general or if we had a primary and a general election, and in the general election, the candidate won by 51%. But if only 20% of the people voted,
Right.
that's only 10%, slightly more than 10% of the registered voters,
Yes.
which isn't even the number of residents.
That's on the voter.
I agree.
But
I
what
agree.
we're talking
But
about
it
is being
doesn't
able to
mean that-
have representation.
Exactly.
And if you don't have 50%, then you don't have representation, or you don't have confidence in the person that was selected. Well, all those things are very important, and I don't disagree, but you can't tie it down to a percentage. I'm sorry, I only got 50% or 52%. That means nothing. It's the number of votes that came out and decided to cast a vote of who should be the candidate. This document here does nothing but strengthen my opinion of what we've already agreed to before about the primaries.
Okay. Mr. Waters, do you have any more comments on this?
Well, yes, I think that, I think John makes a really good observation about the summary as far as the cost goes. That does tend to lessen the cost factor here. And there's one other point that maybe we should consider that we have not talked about, and that is, I do wonder what our chances of getting support for one or the other with the council, and then secondary with the voters if this ever gets to that point.
Yeah, or a compromise. If one fails to reach a certain percent, it does go to runoff.
No, I mean this Charter Review Commission. Whichever way we recommend, what kind of support will we have with the city council, and then what kind of support will we have with the voters? I have to admit that I hadn't thought too much about that, but we may go through this entire process weighing pros and cons, and we have absolutely no support from either one of those bodies.
Well, that's true, but that's
think
true
that-
about every single decision we're making.
Exactly
here.
right. Exactly right.
And I would think, I think when the ballot measures are drafted, I would recommend that if we do vote to remove primaries, that be a separate ballot item.
Oh, okay.
So that it does, and then it ultimately will be up to the voters.
So your position is possibly going clear past this, and then have a draft that the council addresses when we put the entire package to the citizens. And then they'll speak, whether
Right.
90 vote or 9,000 vote.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's how it works.
That's a very smart way to use this. Exactly.
Um,
I'm just telling you, that'd be a great deal right there.
I
To put that out there, then show exactly what I think they're paying attention to, and let them pick it out. Then that's a very good idea.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, and Ms. Steele made this suggestion, and we didn't really discuss it, but I've been thinking about it a lot since you did. And that was maybe if we decide to keep the primary, maybe change it to if there are more than 5 candidates. Or I don't remember what number you suggested.
Yeah, if we could narrow it down, I mean, find a number that's reasonable. I mean, are we still gonna have nominees, you know, get so many names and numbers and whatnot to,
I say if we leave it open,
Still-
28 people want to run, and let them run.
but do they have a requirement to, in order to run, they need to get some people
I think if you
behind
get
them?
10 people to get 15 signatures, you want 28 people to run, let them run.
We didn't change the petition
Okay,
process
So
or
pull it all together and let everybody
who
see the
can
numbers.
sign a petition or anything like that. And that was also addressed in this memo, another thing that I thought was interesting, and I misread our charter originally. I thought you could only sign one petition. But apparently you can sign every petition that
You think you'd be able to sign more, one for an at-large and one for an in-district, correct? And one for mayor, obviously, is that right?
I think that.
But we didn't
In-district,
change that.
at-large, and a mayor. But I think that you can sign any petition you want to get somebody on the ballot.
I think that's the way it's written now.
Yeah, because you're just saying that it's okay with
It's
you if
okay
they
to place
run.
their name, yeah,
It's
to
not that
meet
you're
the threshold to
supporting
place
them.
them
And
on
then
the
we kind of
ballot.
discussed that the last meeting.
Yeah, we did.
You can sign as many of them as you want.
But this was interesting that most other cities did kind of limit it to,
Kinda
you
limit
could
it,
only
yeah.
sign one for your district or two if there were two at large.
You know, I went back and took a look at the memo that the Jackson County Election Board gave us, and they listed out all the costs and things. And I kind of read some of this too, that they're wanting us to consider too for the amount of work on them when they have to go through and certify the votes and do the special election just for, say, independents. It really puts a lot of burden on them to go through that. I know that's their job and that's what they're there for.
And sometimes there's some downtime, because every month, every 6 months is not an election
Right.
cycle.
And I'm saying, to me, that was kind of the two things they pointed out, the cost and then the time and time frame
We
for
could
them
cut
to
a lot of
certify.
time by getting rid of the Jackson County election office unless there's election. You see,
Well, that was the second page they didn't provide us.
If I'm gonna count 150 names for 31 candidates for District 2, that's their job.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
I say, I like your idea. Let's let the voters decide what's gonna happen in 15 or 18 years down here.
So what is your
My
motion?
motion is to let the city council decide whether they, what are you looking at me like that for?
Me? It's just my face.
So
You
is
got a
your,
lot.
is your motion to make no change to our previous vote?
That doesn't actually require a motion.
Well, okay, so I guess I'm asking, does someone have a motion
So what I.
remove,
well,
keep the primary?
Well, I think that we should be able to let it stand alone, just what you said earlier. What you were talking about is if we submit some language that lets the city council put it to the members when it's time to vote on this as a package, leave that on a standalone layer.
I mean, that's what I would recommend.
Don't they already have that authority?
Huh?
I don't think.
Don't they already have that authority when it gets to them that they can,
Not with the charter, I don't think, right? Primaries is worded in the primary, in the charter. They have to
with
have
what we're
one.
doing is what I'm talking about, Bruce.
I'm sorry, I'm confused on the question.
The question is,
So are we, and we're gonna be here another year.
together, holding
Together.
hands, kumbaya. The council right now, once they get this rough draft that we approve, they still have the authority to change anything they want to change, right?
That is, they have the authority to make any changes they want and present those to the voters. That is
Yes.
correct.
So it's already in there, Bruce.
Well, I'm still not gonna vote today to wipe the primary out because we're sitting here as a body. I think that
so we've already voted to
yeah, we just.
vote out the primary. That's already been done, then we've reopened it to discuss it, so do we need another vote to change that?
Right. Yeah, the motion was to reconsider, so I think
Reconsider,
we have to
yeah.
vote on that, right, or
No,
not?
the reconsider is it. So you previously had a motion that to remove the primaries. That was done. Then there was a motion to reconsider the topic, which is what allowed you all to discuss it again. Okay, my perspective is only if you are changing what you have previously done does there need to be a motion and a vote. If there is without a motion and a vote, what you have already done
It's done.
will stand.
Be submitted to the council.
will be submitted to the council. Now, not to say again that you all can't make any, I mean, as it is right now, that's what would happen. So if you want to change what you've already done, that would require a motion to vote. Absent a motion and a vote, then it just stays the same. So you don't need a motion and a vote to keep it the way it already is, because you've already voted on it.
So if we leave it that way, would it make sense to either meet with the mayor and council, discuss this with them, saying we have a recommendation to make it a separate item and a separate vote?
Yeah, I mean, I read the original resolution appointing us, and we were supposed to draft the ballot measures, which I think is a difficult thing to do. And so, but I would ask that if the city councilor drafts those, that we at least have some input into it. And I think we'll make a presentation to the council when we're done here. And if I was presenting, I would actually request that.
I mean, yeah, that's up to you all in what form you send it over to the council. I mean, it's also possible that, again, depending on what they do and changes, that, you know, they send it back to you, you know, or send, you know, or something like that. I mean, I'm not going to speculate on what they may do, but it's up to you all in what form you submit it to them.
Okay.
But I'm happy, I mean,
Yeah,
assist. Yeah, I mean, we're happy to assist you with that and whatever,
Okay.
however you all want to do it. But yeah, I'm just saying it's your call. I understand. I think you're right about the ballot language. That said, obviously in the end, they can make any changes, you know, that they want to make, as we've discussed. So it's, you know, it's up to you all how you want to present that to them, and we'll help you do that.
Okay. I just know because I have drafted ballot language and it is difficult. And especially when you're making so many changes, and a lot of ours are just kind of like small changes, grammatical,
overall,
and
they
that's
make a big
numbering,
impact.
and those you need to kind of do separately.
But
Anyway.
I know that like Larry Blick, their group made a recommendation to council for something. I would think we could do the same. This pulling the primary out for a vote of the public, if that's a recommendation we have, I think we add that to the list to get their, solicit their input, because they can always say no
Right.
and leave it the way it is, or they can change it.
Okay. So do we have a motion on this?
I'd make a motion to leave the primaries in.
Well, we don't have to do that.
What's that?
Oh, to leave the primaries in?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there is a motion to put primaries back into the charter. Do we have a second?
Second.
You second? Okay, I think we need a roll call vote.
Do we have, Mr. Waters, are you there?
I am.
Okay.
So the motion is to put the primaries back in, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
To overturn her. Okay.
Will we have a moment for discussion following that motion?
Okay,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that I'm going to be voting no. The reason for that, I just want to specifically address that is that I think that we leave it the way that we've already voted with substantial discussion, and we make, as we've discussed, we make the recommendation along with many other notes to the city council that this portion be set apart for a special vote, I guess, if you will, on the ballot. So that's my thoughts.
Any other discussion before we take a
I'm gonna
vote?
agree with what Tom said, the same reason.
Okay, the motion is to add primary language back into the charter. We have a second. If there's no further discussion, can we take a roll call vote, please?
Sure.
So let me ask a clarifying question. A
Sure.
yes vote is to overturn what we've done. A no vote is to sustain what we've done.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Summer,
No.
McDonald,
No.
Casey,
No.
Huff,
Yes.
Allender,
Yes.
DeHart,
No.
Frakes,
Yes.
Waters,
No.
Steele,
No.
Boatright.
No.
It doesn't pass.
Okay, that fails 7-3. Is that correct?
But we want to
Making
make
sure
a
the math
note
is right.
that we want the primaries to go on a separate ballot.
So we
Right,
can
we
say,
make that note.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Where are we now? Okay, Mr. Waters, were you on the meeting when we voted to approve the additional language for write-in candidates?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
He doesn't have the handout, does he?
No.
Okay, Mr. Waters, we took a vote, I believe, before you were on Teams on this meeting. Would you like for me to read what we voted to add?
Yes, please.
Okay, and this would be in 6.6 at the very end. This was drafted by legal counsel, and this is what it reads. Write-in candidates. Write-in candidates are required to have filed a declaration of intent to be a write-in candidate for election to office with the city clerk prior to 5:00 p.m. on the second Friday immediately preceding the election day. And that came from Missouri state statute. So we've already voted to include that.
Okay, terrific.
Okay, and I think that's where we ended before we,
Correct, but you also made an addition to the beginning of 6.6. It was just a one line.
Right, we need to, I make a motion to accept 6.6 as is.
Second.
Just a moment. It does say in 6.6, it's still got the primary election language in there, that needs to be changed.
Correct.
They haven't been made.
So the
Oh, I see.
17th and 14th Tuesdays.
yeah, we did hold, another change was made that we haven't voted on yet. That was 6.64. Where the timeline was changed for filing nominating forms.
Right.
On the 6.6 nominations for primary election, we took primary out, which is crossed out. But in the paragraph, it still mentions primary.
Which, so 6.6 what?
6.6.1. We took primary out of the title, but the first sentence says nomination of a candidate.
For the primary election of the office.
So what had happened was you guys had voted to take primary out, then we started to work through it.
Oh.
City Councilor's office said that they would provide a copy, which was provided previously. And then we skipped over it because there was additional discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're just making sure that.
So what we're looking at right now has primaries all over it.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
But we'll remove that for the next one.
Okay, do we need to, have we voted on this date or extension of time to file the petition for the general election? I think that's where we were.
On 6.6 paragraph 4?
Yes.
Yes,
No, you said you'd come back to it after
Okay.
Tom got on because it had to do with primary.
okay.
Yeah, and he hasn't heard the discussion.
But he has not heard it. Is there a way to get a copy of this to him?
I can hold it up.
I can, Tom, can you see my computer?
Yes,
Okay, let me pull it up, okay?
okay.
Okay.
Okay, I can see that.
Tom, this was drafted by Mr. Head. I don't know what your title is, Assistant City Councilor?
Sure, we'll go with that.
Okay. It just extends the length of time for the candidates, since if we don't have a primary, to get their petitions signed and filed.
And it equated to 120 days and 90 days.
Okay.
Okay, are there any questions or discussion on this? And then we also are asking that references to primary elections be removed from 6.6. So do I have a motion to do that and to make this change?
I'll make a motion to accept it
Okay,
as written.
okay. You have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Does that take care of 6.6?
Yes, there it goes.
Okay, are we ready to move on to 6.7? And I'm using the old paragraph and section numbers from the current charter. 6.7 is primary election dash exceptions. So we need a motion to remove that.
I'll make the
To strike
motion.
that. Second,
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, so it's, we have 10 here today, so that's 9 in favor.
Well, I would, my notes with Bruce, consistent with my last
Okay.
vote.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
So we have 3 no votes, 7 yes. Is that correct? So that passes.
I can't believe I'm convinced right
You are, I'm glad you're here.
now. Okay, 6.8.
Okay, Lindsay, you've got the proposed changes pulled up, correct?
Yep.
We also have those in front of us, the exception of Mr. Waters.
All right, Tom, give me just. Can you see it now, Tom? On the
Yes, I
right.
can.
Okay.
Okay, first, I asked, and I'm recommending that in paragraph 2 of 6.8, where it speaks to incompetency, that we change that and add adjudication of incompetency. Adjudication means that there is a court order. I believe incompetency is a legal term and is only determined by a court. I could be wrong, but I think that was an issue that may not have been completely clear when this came up in the previous election. So that's my recommendation. I wonder if anyone else disagrees.
I agree.
So if somebody charged or opponent, say I'm number 19 on the ballot, and I say Terry Bradshaw's nutty, I have to prove it in court, or incapacitated, I have to prove it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's always been to declare someone incompetent, that takes a court hearing. That is judicial determination.
I-
I can say you're incompetent.
Right.
I believe that to be true, but that was the subject of a lawsuit. Yes. And that's why I think it needs to be clarified. Any other discussion on that? Okay, so further in 6.8, I think that we removed the primary language and added if one of these things happens, death, adjudication of incompetency, removal, other disqualifying condition, we added end of the withdrawal period. So it's between the withdrawal period and the general election. Again, to clarify that. Is that correct, Mr. Head?
Or the certification.
I'm sorry. Could you ask your question one more time?
I just want to make sure I understand, because I think we discussed this and you put it in writing, in that paragraph where we removed primary and added
Yeah.
end of the withdrawal period. That, okay.
So what that paragraph contemplates is when that happens between the withdrawal period and the election, then that candidate, the surviving candidate is automatically declared the winner, okay? The next section is if there are no other candidates and there's only one person running, if that person dies, is declared incompetent, etc., then that position that'll create a vacancy, and that'll be filled in the manner as vacancies are filled, like we discussed back in 2.8. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's well written. Thank you. Any discussion on that, those changes? You can see.
What was your discussion about the adjudication of incompetency? What did we decide? Or what was,
We haven't voted on it yet.
okay. The wording up there. is
What we're
we
looking
thought.
at is Ryan's recommendations currently, so Tom can see them. That's not the actual charter that you guys.
Oh, okay.
And the adjudication was my recommendation. The others, I think we've already discussed, and Mr. Head put it in writing.
And this would be before the election?
No, between the election and certification.
Okay.
Let's go back up to this, should death, adjudication, incompetency, or removal from city, what does that mean?
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out.
I think if they move out of the city limits,
Or remove, well, if you move out of the city, it's different than removal from the city.
That's already there.
I may want to move.
We didn't change that, so that's up to you
They
guys.
may grab you and drive you out of the city limits, you're done.
It goes back
I've
to the
heard that
Wild West
before.
where the marshal would remove people from the city, I guess. I don't know.
By sundown.
By sundown, that's right.
you guys do it.
Take you down to the train station,
One-way
or
ticket.
you Yellowstone.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the way it's worded, but I get what you're saying. So if you want to make a recommendation on that, we're open to it.
Well, it's probably one of those things that will never come up, but how about if we just took or removal from city, just say adjudication of incompetency or any other disqualifying condition?
Which would mean if you moved out of the city limits, that's disqualified.
Well, yeah, that's a disqualifying condition.
Or you can put non-residents in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good, I like that. term. So do you want to change removal from city to non-residency?
Non-residency.
Now, who will police this?
I think the clerk has to devise the balance of qualifications, is that right? Is that what we've done so
And
far?
determine if they're,
Well, yes and no. I mean, essentially, a candidate signs an affidavit. The clerk does not, and in fact, there's a number of cases on this. The clerk does not, on his or her own, verify the information. So what typically happens is it's up to other constituents or
Burden of proof and make the
or
check.
people, or other people running in that race to, and I seen that play out before to say, hey, I don't think Bill really lives here. He stays at his mom's house when he's here, but he lives in Blue Springs or whatever it is. And so you would use that affidavit. So I mean, the clerk requires the forms to be filled out, but the clerk is not independently verifying the information. And in fact, per case law is forbidden from doing that because it essentially puts the clerk in a position of making decisions about, who his or her, is successfully on the ballot, who, their bosses are and that sort of thing. So the clerk is kept out of it beyond just providing the forms and making sure they're turned in. After that, it's on the public to, essentially enforce it.
So
Is it written differently, like in Blue Springs or Lee Summit, or?
Pardon me?
I think that Mr.
In
Boatwright
Blue-
had it right, or removal should be just stricken. It says, or any other disqualifying condition. That settles it. The disqualifying condition would be out of your
Fraudulent affidavit.
just strike or removal from the city and go to or any other incompetency or any other disqualifying condition occur. And that covers.
I agree.
short and sweet.
Jeremy, do you think that will work?
Yes, I think that accomplishes what the intent is with this section.
Okay. So now the recommendation is to remove the term or removal from city.
Correct.
Just strike that. Let's see if it reads.
Should death or adjudication of competency or any other disqualifying condition occur to any successful.
My question was, how do other cities certify elections? That seems like somebody would have a checklist and someone would verify that data that you're talking about. It wouldn't be the city clerk. Rather than putting it on a fellow candidate and make it come like, oh, you got a bad taste in your mouth, so you're gonna make these allegations.
Certifications through Jackson County.
I mean, so we're talking about two different things. I mean, this is to put them on the ballot. Certifying the election happens after the election. But
Yeah.
So the certification is actually done in terms of the votes is done by Jackson County. That's what we do by Jackson County Election Board. In terms of, vetting candidates, that there is not a built-in process for that to occur beyond them signing an affidavit that says, I meet all the qualifications. So under penalty of law, they're saying they meet all this, but it is not up to the city, it is not up to the election board to go out and check that information. That happens as a result of
A charge being leveled.
some right. I mean, some constituent, other candidate, whatever it is, some group saying, they, and that's all public information. I mean, so, saying, and I was involved with a situation like that in the city of Springfield, where there were two brothers. One was running for council and one was running for mayor. and the allegation was that they didn't really live in the city limits, that they essentially had an apartment that they shared, but that their real houses were outside of, were in the area, but not within the corporate boundaries of Springfield. And again, and people brought a court case in order to enforce that. But the bottom line is that's not on city clerk, city manager, the election board. That came from, it was other candidates and groups who did not want to see those two elected. That's who brought those claims in order to have them removed from the ballot. So what a primary? Yeah,
Shit,
it's a whole other question.
through sometimes a Christmas evening, let alone brothers on the council. I couldn't make it to.
I just want to make sure that in our qualifications to run for office, that's specified.
Just let everyone know Tom left the meeting.
He's out.
You heard what he wanted to hear. He's done.
So I'd make a motion on 6-8.
Have we addressed the qualifications?
Yeah, I'm
What's on
just,
that
I don't
affidavit
even,
that has no teeth?
cannot remember where that.
Never mind.
We did do qualifications,
Yeah,
but
we've been
I'm trying to
back.
refresh my memory to make sure that was set out.
Yeah, the qualifications are in through. Same as where we sought who would fill in for our applicant. 2, 8, or 9, I believe. Where that is.
I think it's Article 2 somewhere.
Okay, for council members,
Unless
it's
Commissioner Allender wants to open that back up and rechange.
qualifications, only registered qualified voters of the city. So that means they have to be a resident, right?
I mean, yes.
Well,
As-
supposed to be.
Right, supposed to be. I mean, as the chair knows, residency, the legal concept of residency is a sort of a tricky issue.
And it's kind of loosely enforced.
Yeah, it's a hard, and so that's why the courts have said it should not be on a city clerk to make that determination. It was a city of Branson case that clarified that issue, where the city clerk was essentially kind of out there, playing private investigator and trying to figure out, because there was a question anyway, and that's when they said, nope, that's not the clerk's job, that's not the city's job. Once they say they meet the qualifications, if someone doesn't believe them, that's on them to bring that. So that's the way, again, it's always been interpreted here, and that's how it's set up.
It just seems kind of important.
It is important. It is important. But again, the alternative, I suppose in theory, if we were just starting from scratch, we could put that on that burden on the election board or something like that. But we can't tell. Essentially, I think the only way to do that would be for the city to create its own election board, like Kansas City has done, where you then, sort of lay out what their duties are. I haven't heard an interest in taking that on. So absent doing something like that, it's not, I don't see it.
Especially after Kansas City can't handle Clay Chastain.
All right, are there any more comments about the proposed changes and additions to 6.8 that are shown in red line?
Well, you got the removal from the city, it's in the second paragraph.
Yeah, it's in the second one also. Okay, thank you.
That thought was just a copy of the one. I've been looking at it too much.
Okay, yeah, I have a motion to approve those changes.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now, 6.9, order of names on ballots.
You guys already voted on this, but after rereading, Ms. Summer did not like the way that it sounded.
I didn't like the first sentence. I know we kind of copied and pasted from the Blue Springs charter, but it didn't, the first sentence didn't read correct to me, or just didn't sound right. So I just sent Lindsay kind of a recommended change to that first sentence. Do you have it?
Yes, so the recommendation is the order of names on the ballot for candidates who file a declaration of candidacy with the city clerk prior to 5 p.m. on the first day for filing shall be by random drawing. The drawing shall be
Determines the order which the candidates may appear on the ballot. A drawing shall be conducted so each candidate or candidates represented.
My recommendation was only to change the first sentence just because it just didn't read right to me.
So this in bold black is what you submitted?
No.
She's on the other.
Oh, I see it, okay.
really, I think the only thing she wanted to add was before candidates is the order of names on the ballot for candidates.
Would you mind typing it in? Okay.
Just kind of picky, but we say prior to 5 p.m. on the first day, should it be of filing or for filing?
I mean, I think you go either way. There's a preference. I mean, it's up to you all, but I think you go either way.
Can you enlarge it just a little bit? On the, you're saying it should be on the first day of filing?
I don't know if it should be
Okay.
of filing or for filing.
Yeah, of,
You
I'm
just say
fine with
a
that.
random drawing determines the order,
Yeah, that's not,
or rock, paper, scissors.
that's not the,
to the death.
exactly how I wrote it. Let's see. Yeah, Lindsay, I had, prior to 5:00 p.m. on the first day for filing shall be by random drawing.
The first day of for filing
Shall be by random drawing.
Shall be to determine the order in which candidates' names appeared on the ballot.
Hold on, let me see, there was. And then delete the rest of that sentence.
After what?
After random drawing. Okay, so let's read this. The order of names on the ballot for candidates who file a declaration of candidacy with the city clerk prior to 5:00 PM on the first day for filing shall be by random drawing, period. And then everything else is the same.
Do we need a verb, shall be determined by random drawing?
Add the word determined after by. Is that what you're recommending? Yeah, that's good.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then if you want to change the first day for filing to the first day of filing, that sounds good too. Yes. Okay, does anyone dispute that that sounds better? Do you have a motion to make that change to 6.9?
I'll make the motion.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks. But the rest of it we've already voted on, correct, Lindsay?
Correct.
Okay. All right. 6:10. Can that entire 6:10 be deleted, be stricken?
Yeah, if we're not gonna be having a primary election, I would say.
The
6,
entire
10 would
section?
be-
Okay.
Do they have to make a motion?
You want to make sure there's nothing in it that needs pulled out? I don't think so. That's just for primaries. Okay, do I have a motion to strike 6.10?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
2 noes?
3.
3 noes? Okay. 7-3.
Oh, 6-3 because Tom's off.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
6, 3, and 1.
Close. Closer. Okay. 6:11, voting at general election.
You guys discussed this one at the last meeting and no edits were made on 6:11.
No changes?
Correct.
Okay.
And then you guys skipped over section 6:12.
Is the primary election.
Correct.
All right, is there a motion to strike 6.12?
So moved.
Can we
Oh,
back up just a second?
Sure.
I was looking at 6:11. The second paragraph, since we're not voting for 2 on general elections, shouldn't that kind of have some wordage now? You understand what I'm saying? Since we're just getting the top voter in there.
That's because for council members at large, you do vote, you still vote for 2. Yeah.
I lost that at large.
All right.
And that would be the record one.
Okay.
So 6:12, we started to have made a motion to remove it.
All right, and we have a second? Do I have a second?
Started that motion, I'm sorry. Okay.
I could second it if I need to.
I'm gonna turn this off because he's not there.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Do we have 3 opposed?
No, the top two vote, now we're back to two, get two.
Now we're doing,
Now we're talking
I
about,
wasn't- hey, well, yeah, I got it.
are you a no?
I was kidding.
18
No,
months.
I voted yes,
Okay,
because it doesn't have any of the language I don't agree with, so we're good.
So who opposed that? I'm sorry.
Nobody.
He did.
Nick?
I'm 6'12", I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't, I'm 6'12". So,
I'm gonna ask for that vote again.
Yeah, can we do, let's do a roll call vote.
so this is 6'12", taken out.
Removing it.
So the motion is to strike 6.12, which is canvassing returns at primary election certifying results.
I thought we were at 6'11" and we went over the word of the two. Okay, hang on.
We're on 6.12.
There were no changes made to 6.11.
And remember, I'm going by the numbers of the original charter.
Oh,
That's all everyone has this time, unless you have an old document.
Okay,
It was too confusing with the.
yeah, right. Okay, so
6'12" is what we're gonna vote on.
6:12 is we are-
Stricken from the charter.
yes. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No,
No. And 3 noes? Okay. Six 13 canvassing returns at general election certifying results. Did we look at that one already, Lindsay? Yeah, there's a
So there
change.
was discussion last time on this when you recommended changing the dates and times to reflect the recommendations from the Jackson County Election Board. And then nothing ever happened with that recommendation.
Okay.
We
we
were
were talking
retired by
about
then.
canvassing. We've had a big discussion on what canvas meant.
We did talk about what does canvassing mean, but
Yeah.
the recommended changes by Mr. Head have to do with the time of the election board. Correct?
Away with the 10
Yeah,
days.
and I took this language from the letter of
Okay.
Ms. Gorman.
Does everyone see the changes that have been recommended by legal counsel under 613?
here.
Any discussion of that?
No.
Do I have a motion to approve those changes?
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. 614 tie votes.
Can I have just a moment real
Yeah.
quick?
Yeah. Are you ready? Okay.
Almost, I think.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, for tie votes, we discussed taking out that by lot old language and making it drawing of straws. And it needed to be in 2 places in 614.
Underline it just to make it consistent.
I missed this first one.
Okay, you want to go ahead and make that change?
Yeah, say, is it by drawing of straws?
Yes. So just delete lot. Yeah.
And then down below we can say that.
Okay, Ms. Steele has left for a second. I think we can go ahead and vote on this. Do I have a motion to approve that change?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second. Second.
Okay. She's back. We're on 614 and there's a motion and a second to change the by lot language to drawing of straws in 2 places. So do you have any discussion on that? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes. All right, we're almost to the end. 615 special elections.
You guys discussed this last time and no edits were made, just. so
No
everyone is
changes?
aware.
Anyone have anything they want to change about on 615 special elections? If not, we'll move on. There is a new section. Did we vote on this new section? I don't know if the numbering will stay the same. It was on effective tax delinquencies on the nomination.
We haven't done anything with this. the
Okay,
tax
can you
delinquency.
bring it up? And I believe this was the language that was in one of the forms that was drafted by legal counsel to add into the charter.
Tax delinquency, or are we still at 615?
Well, we're at a new section, but this numbering, I think I don't know if it'll be 6.13, but we'll just have to adjust the numbering. We'll adjust the number.
The section we're looking at is titled Effective Tax Delinquency on Nomination.
So we're not to 6.15 yet.
Yes, we just
Well,
didn't make any changes to 6.15.
Yeah, there's no changes.
So we're having extra elections?
No.
Well,
Special
They
election.
can have a special one if they want now?
yeah.
Well, okay. I thought we were trying to cut them all out. They're,
Not the same as a primary.
okay.
So as an example, what the election that filled the vacancy created by the death of Councilwoman DeLucy, that was considered a special election.
I recognize that.
Yeah.
That was- yeah.
Okay, so that
Yeah, I
so
got all that.
it's
Thought we were-
So, and also, let's say on an off year where there's no council seats, I think that happens, correct?
yeah, correct. Yeah,
Where
I'm
there
sorry.
would be no council seats up for election or mayoral up for election, and the city wanted to have an election for use, which they've already done.
Oh,
But
sure.
let's say use tax, that would be considered a special election,
Yeah.
correct?
Like, right.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the marijuana tax that was on the ballot this past April, if in fact that
ran with the Jackson
actually,
County
well, it
election.
ran, but actually for the city, there wasn't any. That was the only city item on the ballot. So that actually was a special election for the city. It was being held on a
Statewide, county.
right, but it was a special election for the city. So anyway, okay,
I knew all that.
got it.
Okay. So now we're on to this new section. Again, the numbering will probably change when it's added. Let's look at that. And this came out of the statute, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, this is statutory language. Any questions about it? Discussion?
So each potential candidate for a city election to a public office shall file an affidavit with the Department of Revenue and include a copy of the affidavit with the acceptance of the nomination. That would be if, okay, no, Because petition could be.
Does anyone have any questions on this section? Do we have a motion to add it to the charter?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Hi, I have a
Opposed?
question
Okay,
for discussion.
sure, go ahead.
How is that validated? That I don't owe any taxes, I don't, no property taxes, no municipal taxes, no income taxes, no personal property taxes. Who's gonna validate that?
Again, I think it's the affidavit that subjects you to the penalty of lying to the Department of Revenue.
Penalty of perjury like sign and all that you're clear. But wouldn't it be like, I could compare it in my head like a business that says I want to like, and they say, well, you don't owe anything in the rears. You're
Yeah.
cleared for, that's what it reminded me.
And
There is a clearance, a tax clearance.
so I don't know exactly how it works, but I have had situations, where after the clerk submits everything, where they actually do get notification from the Department of Revenue that a candidate has an outstanding tax liability. In fact, in some cases, they've actually gotten it even before they file if they've been like an existing candidate.
Is
So
it just state?
No.
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, this also includes property taxes, which are county assessed. And I know that, I don't know if the county still checks those. I know if they are requested to, they will. I don't know if the city makes any effort to verify that. but-
I don't think so, but again, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never tried it, but I don't think anything stops me from going in and looking at to see the
Yes, you-
tax status of anyone else. Is that correct?
That's correct. The only thing that you may not be able to see is whether someone owes delinquent taxes and they are under a payment plan.
Okay.
And so, and that has happened
Sure.
in more than one candidacy in Jackson County. So again, this is,
So it would take another chart, like a level from a second either candidate or constituent to say, I don't know that.
I mean, they're swearing
Harry's all.
in their affidavit under oath that they do not, they aren't
Perjury that
delinquent.
They're square.
I guarantee you, your potential candidate on the other side, he's looking at
Oh,
you.
yeah.
I mean, there was a councilman in Kansas City a few years ago that got elected and then got unelected because he had never filed income tax. And that came out, and he says, I didn't know I was required to file income tax. And he was an attorney. You'll slam two attorneys in the room.
Thinking what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
you
wrote a
get a
book about
business
it.
license, you have, when I owned the bar for 10 years, you had to have clearance on everything, and it's
Yeah.
a matter of record.
But he was elected and then lost his seat
Not in this
because
town, but
his
still.
affidavit was
Tax clearance.
invalid.
Well, again, this is the statutory language.
I'll make a motion to accept this language.
All right, I think we have a motion and a second, correct?
There was already a motion.
Right.
We already had a
We
motion.
have a motion and a second.
Well, I think we're gonna redo the vote just now that we've had the discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, that's done. Okay, we have 20 more minutes. I would like to get started on Article 7, but it's up to,
We need to start planning the Christmas party. We're gonna take a little time.
I'm ready for it at this point.
Anniversary party.
Does anyone want to wait to start Article 7 at the next meeting, or do you want to go forward now? What'd you say?
I said, this next meeting,
Yeah. I
Next
agree.
meeting?
Let's take a
Okay.
odd number.
since I'm gonna be here for
And Nick can no longer be absent, we couldn't hear Commissioner Allen during the whole meeting last week.
I
Nobody
agree.
turned their mic on.
We're a little short on
I was
numbers.
kind of busy over here.
Boat ride.
I'm having fun, let's put it that way.
Yeah, he kept
I-
riding.
One
Boat
time I
ride was
turned
like
it on and
riding a
said-
surf over there.
I would like to bring up a couple of topics that in Article 7 that I just made note of that you may want to look at, you may not, in preparation for our next meeting. And one is, so we're going to be talking about initiative and referendum petitions, and then recalls, elections. And it's something I think we need to discuss are what percentage of voters do we need
The threshold.
exactly? And various cities have various numbers. So if you want to look at the model charters and other charters and look at those.
Well, if we base it on the number of people who vote, it's gonna be a small number.
It's actually, it's usually based on registered voters, but not always, not always. So that's just something to think about. And then I have some suggested language. Remember when we were talking about when ordinances take effect? And our former city clerk questioned that because if an ordinance has already, if it takes effect immediately and work has started on whatever the ordinance involves, and then there's a referendum petition, how is that addressed? And I found some language that I think will cover that. So I'll present that at the next meeting. Okay, so we're gonna end our,
Motion to adjourn.
what, no, not yet.
Okay, all right. Is it 2 weeks from now we're doing it?
Yeah, when is our next meeting, Lindsay?
August 1st,
And it's here at 5:00?
correct.
Is there any other business? Okay, now, a motion to adjourn.
Already made it.
Motion, second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are opposed. We are adjourned.